Hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's session in stock market Kopitime. We have actually a guest with us. We have Swee Kiang with us, who will be sharing today's topic, right? So, if you can hear us or you can hear me, can you just say yes on the comment so that we know that you are able to hear and see us? Can you just comment yes?
Good evening, everyone. Hello, Benny.
All right. Hi. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Chuan Chun. Thank you, Eve. All right. So we're going to start. And today's topic is, I think many people are asking, right? If you have read the news today, we see a few banks in the US have actually collapsed. And the question is, will this happen here in Malaysia as well, right? So I'm basically, first of all, we're gonna just explain to you guys what actually happened to the banks that are affected in the US. What are the factors and what are the key factors that actually affecting them and how they can actually collapse, lah. All right. And then of course we're gonna also look at how different it is the situation here in Malaysia. Are the banking system here, are the banks here also affected as well? All right. So this is what we're going to go through. And if you have any questions, you can just type yes, or you can just type it on the comment section so that we are able to answer you guys. Right. At any point of time, you can just type those questions in. All right. So this is what we're going to be talking about today in the next 1 hour or so. And therefore, just if you have any questions directed to me or Swee Kiang, you can also type those questions down. Before we start, whatever that's being shared here today is for information and educational purposes only. It's not intended as any investment advice. So please make your own due diligence you make before you use the information today and make your own investment decisions. All right. So banking crisis, of course, we have heard about banks like Silicon Valley Bank, First Bank, and a few other banks that are affected, right? That has actually even have liquidity problems and eventually collapse, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, the background about what actually happened, and see whether this can also actually happen in Malaysia, right? So that's why we have Swee Kiang here as well to also share his thoughts with us. And you guys, if you have any thoughts or any questions, you can also type it down. Right. So this is a coffee time session. So I hope you have your coffee or tea ready as well, so that we can have this discussion today. All right. Now, if you look at the news today, we hear banks like Silicon Valley Bank, Credit Suisse. You also heard about a few more other banks, but this news, which actually happened last week, is still quite fresh in our minds today. And therefore, is it a cause of concern for us here, right, in Malaysia, right? So most of the media right now is basically covering this particular topic about these banks, right? And now they're also, of course, trying to figure out what actually happened. All right. So we want to take a look at and of course the main reason is the interest rate hike, but that's not also the main reason because the other banks are able they are able to survive, they are able to operate like normal. But why these banks, right? So what happened when we have a very sharp increase in interest rates? So if you look at the banking, the flow of banking and how the banking system works in a nutshell, all right. So actually, when you go to New York Times, you actually have this article written, and this is um, very well written, very well drawn, also to give us an understanding on a layman's term, right? Because if you really want to go and understand the banking business, it is not that simple. Right? It's quite complicated. But hypothetically, let's say a bank it receives $2 billion, right, in deposits, which is money that we put in by the customers, and then what the bank will normally do is they will start to invest the money. Of course, banks make money by you take deposits and then you loan it out. They make higher interest, like credit cards and personal loans and all the kinds of loans, right? So they will use that money, the cash that they receive from the clients, and let's say invest and use that $1 billion in loans, right, to give out, and then the other $1 billion they will buy bonds, right, to get returns from the money that they actually have, right? So either it's loans or from government bonds. Then what happened is when interest rate starts to increase, especially in the US, where it increased very sharply, right, for the past 1 year, bonds have to pay out more, and of course, when that happens, bond prices will also start to go down, right? So the older bonds, the new bonds will have to pay higher interest, so they become more attractive. But those banks who hold the old bonds, right, it becomes less attractive, and it eventually become worthless because, for example, if the bond is just paying maybe 1 or 2% a year ago, and the current bond actually pay, let's say, 5-6%, then of course the older bonds will not be attractive, and nobody's going to buy them, right? And then what happens if the price comes down, and because nobody's buying those bonds, the bonds that the bank have now becomes the value becomes lower, right? So let's say to 500 million, and therefore with the 2 billion deposit, let's say they have gathered from the clients, from the customers, from the 2 billion now only becomes 1 billion, right? This is way less than what was originally deposited, lah, right? So basically the investment in bonds have gone down, and therefore the value that they have now has actually shrink as well, lower than the deposits that the customers have put in earlier. All right. So imagine if, let's say, all the customers ask their money back, and definitely the bank will not be able to pay. Right? Although if they have sold their bank, their bonds, or even they get back the money that they actually loaning out, they still can't pay the customers enough, right? And then the banks may not be able to return their funds. So once this got, once the customers get news of this, people will start to be a little bit worried, okay, because all the banks, they will publish their assets, they will publish their financials. People can actually read it, right? So when they see that their assets are actually going down because of these bonds, people start to notice it, and they start to get a little bit nervous, right? So customers will start to withdraw money, and of course, in order to repay back the customers, the banks have to sell the bonds, lah, right? Remember the bonds they buy at a higher price, and now it's much lower, so they have to sell it at a loss, right? And when that happens, more and more customers get wind of this news, and more people will start to withdraw the money. And then, the more money that the customers withdraw, the more the banks have to actually sell their bonds, and therefore creating more losses for the banks, right? It's like basically if you are buying shares, like, and you buy a share at $1, and now the share is only 50 cents, but you need the money now, right? It's for emergency purposes, and you got no choice but to sell at 50 cents, and therefore you incur a 50% loss. So this is what happens in the bank as well, right? So the fear where customers start to withdraw and withdraw and withdraw, the more losses in the banks, and of course eventually that causes a bank run, right? A bank run is basically depositors taking out money. That means there are a lot of depositors taking out money at a very short period of time, right? Where the banks are unable to get enough liquidity or enough time to even liquidate whatever assets that they have to return the customers back to the money. And when that happens, of course, banks will stop people from withdrawing, because they need time to actually get the cash, right? And then, of course, from one bank, it spreads to other banks where people start to withdraw money on other banks as well, right? So that's what basically happened. And that's the reason why you see when the banks are unable to pay back all their customers because they don't really have the assets anymore, the value is not enough to pay back, they become insolvent, right? They don't have the money to pay them back, and therefore they have to close shop, right? That's one of the reasons why. But the very high increase of interest rates has caused the investment value from banks to go down. Of course, that should not be the only reason. The other reason is also bad risk management practices from the banks themselves, right? Most of these banks that fail focus on very risky and concentrated customer segment. They grew quickly on the deposits. I mean, they get a lot of deposits, especially in certain segments in the customers lah, right? And of course, whenever they receive a deposit, they immediately convert these funds into loans and bonds, which I explained to you earlier, when the interest rates were still low, right? The problem is they assume that the interest rates will not rise so quickly like what happened in the past 1 year. So they do not have actually enough liquidity to actually pay back in case customers want back their money immediately, right? So because of these bad management practices, they did not really expect this to happen, which they should have, because I think banks will probably look at every aspect of risk, right, before they invest customer deposits. And therefore, because of this, right, they failed, right? They failed to look at this risk, and then they failed to get enough liquidity to pay back their customers, right, when they want to withdraw. So the third one is banking deposits. Even in Malaysia, I think it's also capped to 250,000 ringgit. That means whatever money that you put in the bank is basically insured, right? In the US, it's insured by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corp, which is FDIC. But Malaysia, we also have, right? With Malaysia, we also have PDIM, which insures your deposits. In case if, let's say, the bank collapse, they'll pay you back, right? It's insurance. But it's capped at $250,000. So which means that if I have a deposit of less than 250,000, I would not be so worried, right? Because even if the bank goes down, I still can get back my 250,000, up to 250,000. Okay, but what happens to those who have more than that? Especially companies that that deposit their money in there, whether it's in fixed deposits or whether it's in savings, and they need the cash, right, to actually run their operations on a day-to-day basis. Company keep basically cash or money in the banks lah. And what happens if they find and they heard this news and they know that, wow, my money is only insured up to 250,000, but I have, let's say, $2 million in the bank. So what do you think these guys will do? So most of these companies will definitely start to go and withdraw their money, right? Especially those who have more than 250,000, because they only insured up to 250,000. So customers with excess of 250,000 will want to withdraw their deposits. And banks like this, especially like Silicon Bank Valley, are a bank for a lot of corporates and including startups, right? And therefore, when they heard of this news, they start to withdraw their money, and that created that bank run even on the corporate side, right? Not just the retail, like the normal people, the savings account and all that. And that actually, when they withdraw a lot of money, the banks have to find ways to go and pay them back, right? So they have to keep on selling their bonds, and they keep on incurring losses. And at one point of time, they don't have enough liquidity to pay them back, and therefore they have to close their banks, right, to prevent clients from taking their money out. Okay, so these are the three main reasons. For now, they are still looking at other factors and see why these banks actually collapse and why the others are not. All right. So we're gonna take a look at banks in Malaysia. So basically, Swika is our research guy. He goes deep into analyzing data, not just company financial data, but also economic data. All right. So what happened in Malaysia? Of course, when we hear this kind of news, right, happening in the US, people will get scared as well. They are fear. All right. And therefore, people start to sell. Of course, we don't have a bank run in Malaysia. People don't just immediately take out money from their banks, but investors got scared a little bit. They got a shock, right? And therefore, if you look at some of the banking stocks, the red arrow that I showed you that went down, that's when the bank runs happened in the US, right? And you see, not all the share prices, not all banks in Malaysia, but most of the banks' share prices in Malaysia have actually come down, right? And you can see in the past few days, it started to rebound back because we don't really see that effect here in Malaysia, right? So companies like Maybank, for example, on the left, has come down. In that few days of period, it actually come down quite sharply, right? And this basically shows you CIMB Bank and also M-Bank. Of course, there are other banks as well. This is not just these four banks that we have in Malaysia. There are quite a number of banks right here in Malaysia as well. Okay, so that's what happened in the US. But the question is, will this, of course, happen here in Malaysia? Okay, that's what we wanna answer, and we got some information and data to share with you guys, lah. All right. So Swika, maybe you can also explain to us, the banking here in Malaysia. See how is it different from the US, and then we can go on with the conversation now.
Yeah, thank you, Benny. So maybe Benny need your help to proceed to the next slide. So yeah, I guess every one of us here are clients to the Malaysia banking. So for sure, we have our saving accounts, current accounts, credit card issued by banks, and we have a loan, etc. So basically, bank is our daily one of the most important. We are going to deal with them every day. Okay, so when talking about the main difference, I think very crucial one, maybe we can talk about. Let's make some guess. I'm not sure whether any one of you do you aware how many banks are available or right now in America or US compared to Malaysia. So we can anyone you can make a wild guess in US itself. How many banks are there in US?
I also don't know last weekend, probably about 1,000 banks. I'm just guessing.
Okay, 1,000. Maybe you can go up further. Yep.
Higher than that.
Yes.
Okay, what do you guys think? You can just type it down on the comment to just let us know.
Yes.
How
Just
many
make
banks
a
there are.
wild guess. So Benny mentioned 1,000, but I said you can guess more. Yeah, definitely it's more than 1,000. But thank you. 2,000 is still you can continue to increase some more.
Continue to increase a lot more or less.
Yeah, very close, very close. It's in 1,000 range, but the actual number, okay, we don't have an actual number, but it's around 4,100 and Li you are right. It's near 4,000 plus to be exact. It's 4,137 up to September last year. So bear in mind, this is only commercial bank, excluding the investment bank. Commercial bank is the one that normally deal with our daily life. So if added up the investment bank, the numbers will, I think, easily touch to 5,000. So just imagine how big or how large is the banking system in US. And okay, that is in US. So imagine that you are going to manage so many banks in your country. What is the scope of the management and also the duty? And if they compare to Malaysia, so back to Malaysia, so do you know what is the actual number bank in Malaysia? So 4,000 plus in US. Maybe some of you guess 400 in Malaysia, but all of us know we are Malaysian. We know that, How many?
What do you guys think?
28, yeah. So it's double-digit number as compared to 4,000 is 20. Okay, we have a number in the next slide. Maybe Benny, you can help out to show us the number, the actual number. So I still remember while I was young. So we have quite a numbers of bank, very small bank, like for example, Ban Hing Lee Bank in Penang. I guess some of those Penang Knights are also aware of this Ban Hing Lee, but now no more. Why? Because a lot of banks in Malaysia have been merged into the larger bank. So why is this merge and merging and acquisition been carried out for the past, I think, last 20 years? Okay, even now, I think if you can aware, some of the banks are also looking into this as well. So that means our banking is also moving towards a very consolidate into a more stronger bank system. So while we are small, anything in bank you can't do well. But if you grow bigger, then that will be you are much more stronger than the other one. So that is the main intention. Some banks merge each together and get it stronger so that you can compete. So the actual number in Malaysia banks itself, okay, I have the number on hand. The commercial banks make up of 26, total 26 banks, commercial banks as compared to 4,000 plus in US. So and excluding we have some other banks like the most nowadays getting popular is Islamic Bank. We have 17, okay, 17 in total, and also 11 in investment bank. Okay, okay. Although you can argue that Malaysia we are small, we definitely have a smaller number, but actually this is an effort from Bank Negara. Bank Negara is in charge to control all the banks. So imagine that you are control the smaller number as compared to the bigger number, which is much more easier. Definitely control in a small bank, small number is much more easier. And our bank, the guy actually done it very well. So nowadays, our banking sector after 2008, the financial crisis, our banking system is actually getting much more stronger and stronger. So in terms of number, although we are small, but we are much more stronger. So in terms of number, first thing, then okay, we have some 家招赚, so 27 commercial bank, including 19 licensed foreign. Yeah, so yes, that's including foreign and local as well. So we have, bear in mind that we still have some foreign owned banks in Malaysia. Yes, so this number are included the foreign bank as well. Okay, so what are the banking system mainly in Malaysia? What is their main business? Of course, mentioned by Benny, the main business, the main activity is getting the deposit, the money from the saving and deposit from company or the individual, and then lend out or borrow out the money to the company or any other individual. So this is the main activities that carry out our bank as compared to a lot of American bank are aiming to invest for their fund, okay, deposit they receive. So Malaysian bank, because we are developing emerging country, okay, we need money for development. So a lot of individual or okay borrow banks for their own or for their family and for personal use, and for company they are borrow money from bank for the company's development. So if you're looking at the data, next slide, they will show some data for you to get some idea what are the money flows to, okay, from bank. Okay, so if you walk into a bank, of course different banks they have some different main focus, but overall if we were to lump up add up all the bank or loans all in together, then you can see some data. So this is the pie chart and table showing us some data. Okay, I wanted drag your attention and pay attention to the first three. Okay, on your right hand side, the purpose and also the in terms of percentage. Okay, so the first one is purchase of resident property, and the third one purchase of non-residential property. So Malaysians are we love property very much. So we love to invest into property or buy a house for their own stay. So all these loan are meant for this purpose. So add up is already make up of 47%. Okay, 35 for residential and 12 for uh, non-residential. Then another 22% in the second place is working capital. So as I mentioned, a lot of companies or we need some extra fund to develop their business. Okay, as emerging a young country, we still developing ourselves. So this is actual as compared to some other banking system in the world. Our money is actually lent out and to certain meaningful purpose. I mean, more solid. At least if you lend out for your money to the property, anything to do with if the bank, what does the bank most worry is that you can't serve your loan, you can't pay the loan timely. So what we can still doing bank doing is pull up the facility, and the house or the property is still can lend long out to get some money back. As compared to just now the mentioned by Benny, for the case of SBB, so a lot of money, I think about uh, 90 billion of money invested into the fund. So they no choice because so many banks, so many competition. So if you get much more money deposited from the people, you have to make sure your money to works for you. So that's why either you lend out or you invest. So the SBB bank and some other banks are choosing the other way lah. They choose to invest into the bond as well. But not to say that Malaysian bank will not invest in the bond, but we invest in the much more safer and also safer bond. Okay, Malaysia or Malaysian bank to be specific are much more conservative as to compare to the US bank. Okay, so this roughly, I mean, in a quick brief sharing will let you know and get some idea how different Malaysian banking as compared to US bank. Okay, especially those are running into the trouble. Okay, and I think the next slide we are showing some data on the business growth in for a bank. So you will see that yes, all these are of course a big chunk of the money in property sector and also of capital. And I think not to forget to mention that the fourth one is for the higher purchase. So Malaysian again, we love the car very much. So everyone has car, even every single family you own at least one or two cars. That's why the cars alone make up of quite a high percentage, about near to 10% loan. So you see all the money from banks are meant for these purposes. So that's why, of course, you hardly see Malaysia bank runs into the so-called the bank run. So if you ask around, maybe the very old people can recall. I still in our memory we can't hardly recall any one bank run into this trouble before that, because due to our banking structure is different from US. So basically, this is some quick sharing on our banking system with you all. Of course, as mentioned by Benny, for talking about banking system, this is a very huge or big sector. We need to spend longer time or to deep into the detail of it. Okay, of course, a bank also there are so many criteria to look at, but overall, this is some data, quick data to share with you this point of time. Yep. So maybe I can pass back my time to Benny and see we have any questions that we can start to check and answer.
Okay, thank you, Swee Kiang. I think there is some lag here. Let me just try to stop my camera. I think you don't need to see my face. It's probably from my side. Yeah, so basically, what we are seeing from the data is that the local banks here, the deposits that they actually get, they use it more for loans, right? Like yeah, you mentioned, there's mortgage loan, personal loans, and all kind of loans, and not much left for actually investing on other stuff like bonds, lah, right? So if there is a increase in interest rate, if let's say Malaysia also happen to have a very strong increase in interest rates, it will not affect that much for the Malaysian banking system.
In fact, if you increase the interest rate, what Malaysian do is you put more money into the bank. Malaysians love. I mean, we always call ourselves a very we practice a very good habits. We love to save our money.
Yeah, because imagine like I mean the basic understanding is that if interest rate increase, of course banks should be making more money, right? But in the US they actually collapse, so that's why people are quite confused lah. So looking at it, if there is a very strong interest rate hike, do you think that any of the banks here that you have looked at has a potential risk, or basically most of the banks how they work is pretty much the same across all banks?
Yeah, I don't see this interest rate hike will harm our bank system because we have a very healthy asset, and our non-performing loans is maintained in a very low rate. So that means all the loans actually loan out is for some meaningful purpose, something that can yield or create back some extra value for everyone. So this is how our bank system works right now.
All right, thanks. We have a question from Gwen Yong asking any thoughts on the new digital banks where their target market is unserved and underserved. Can they survive or not with this kind of environment?
So thank you, Gwen. Digital banks actually is extended service from the current convention bank. So what the digital man is, instead of using the printed money, now we are using the digital money. So to pay for your food and to make some other transaction. So this is considered a change of different format only, but the basics are the same. So when how do you have your bank or money generated is also now fall back into the same principle. We don't generate obviously, of course, every year we do printed some money, but digital bank is actually is it can serve more sector right now. So and we can make some very transaction is easily and convenient. So our target market is of course is still the same, and I think the underserved or underserved is that while the generation right now growing, so imagine like in another 10 or 20 years, our kids is no longer using the fiat money or actual money. Now it's using the digital. This is making the new generation used to that. And of course, their world of their world now is with the digital market. Everything is digitally. So no need buying the food and you get your salary. Everything is digital. So it makes our transaction or even efficient, faster, and everything. A lot of the businesses or services can generate it from here. So right now, if you can see, I think the news today, you imagine that previously when you pay your highway toll, now you still pay your money, but it now already transformed into the touch and go and even uh, some other facility. So this is how's our world will behave uh, in in uh, in the next 5 or 10 years. So can they survive? So right now our banking system now we already declare or issue out the bank digital license that every the license owner right now is work very hard to make sure the digital service that going to provide to everyone of us is will be will be successful. So let's see, because right now is still from the date the announce of license until now is still under progress or still in the preparation.
All right, thanks, Swee Kiang. I guess now it's a matter of the trust that people have on banks, because a lot of them are not. I mean, the information is not readily available to, let's say, even depositors of a bank, right? So it's one of the reasons why I think, especially the younger generations, looking at cryptocurrencies as well as another method of storing assets, right? But of course, for a lot of people, that's why cryptocurrency is a very volatile market at the moment, lah. But they're more transparent because it's a decentralized world, and therefore that's something maybe you guys should also look at, lah, right? And then you have, if any comments or discussion on crypto, you can also type it down, because this is something that we all should be also looking at, in my opinion. Now, Lawrence here have a question. Swee Kiang says, is our central bank, which is Bank Negara, exposed to US Treasury bonds?
We didn't see any announcement or declaration from Bank Negara, but if this one we definitely need some time to look into. Is there any statistic available inside Bank Negara website? But as of now, we don't see any exposure. Even have, I think it will be at the smaller or moderate pace. But to be honest, we don't see any data. But if we have, maybe we can share with you later on, Lawrence. But some actually, what I know is from other information, some of the companies, some insurance company, actually they are already taking some action, are not taking actually at least to assess the exposure of how much they have been exposed to uh, to this kind of bonds. And very luckily, I think from information I have from checking and chit-chat with some of the related person in charge is still very minimum and or even zero or very minimum exposure for certain related industry.
All right, thanks, Sukyam. Well, guys, if you have any questions, you can type it down. Then we can continue the conversation, and we still have about maybe about 15 minutes to do so. Okay, since we are talking about crypto a little bit, why is crypto bullish now after this SVB crisis? Please explain. In fact, in the crypto world, there is also a bank run. If you guys are into crypto, you see there's a exchange, which is one of the is the second largest exchange in the world where people trade crypto, right? Exchange crypto. FTX has also collapsed for this particular same reason. But of course, the person who running that exchange is basically a crook lah. It's the same. The concept is a little bit the same, right? Because those investors who deposited their money into the exchange, and the exchange actually used the money to invest on other stuff, right? And when they use the money to invest, and of course, when people start withdrawing and they can't withdraw their crypto because of liquidity again, right? They just don't have enough because most of the crypto has been invested, and therefore we have a bank run there as well, FTX. But that's just because it's a human thing that actually got greedy, right? The crypto blockchain, the crypto market is still well and running, right? So with all the things that's happening right now, is that people are no longer people have a trust issue, whether with not just the bank, whether the government, with authorities, and therefore there's a reason why you also see there's previously you heard about this Occupy Wall Street, and then we have the GameStop saga where people take action collectively, right, against the big hedge funds and hedge fund managers, because they are basically quite fed up, right? That all these guys, people in Wall Street, are making tons of money, but investors on the streets are not making any money. So I guess there is a revival right now on the crypto space, because the crypto space is still quite new, it's still quite young, and it's still developing, and therefore people will definitely want to look for alternative, right, of storing their wealth or their assets, which is basically a decentralized world where everybody has a part to play, right? Nobody is able to actually control the situation that we see right now, right? The interest rate hike, the very steep interest rate hike in the US was actually from their own doing as well, right? They keep on printing money, interest rate was very low, and that caused inflation to spike up, and therefore they have to rise interest rates, right? So the other question we're going to ask ourselves in Malaysia, right? Will we see very steep interest rate hike? I don't think so. We'll see that very steep interest rate hike because our inflation is pretty much in control. Our inflation has not gone up as much as countries like in Europe or in the US, lah, right? So yeah, so Lawrence, I think that's what is going on in the crypto world, because it just creates new interest, right, of people who are now also a little bit fed up with banks, because we have seen this situation before in 2008 during the subprime mortgage crisis, and now we are seeing this. But of course, this event is not the same as the 2008 event, right? It's just because after 2008, actually the banking structure, the banking regulations and all that has been tightened up, and banks are actually stronger after 2008, like what Swee Kiang pointed out. But there's always this unscrupulous, managers who mismanage it. Like I explained to you, the third factor that affects these banks to collapse is also how they actually manage the bank, right? Therefore, in Malaysia, it's still pretty much controlled. They're still quite stable, and therefore that's why, in my opinion, and I think Swee Kiang will agree with me as well, that this will not probably happen right here in Malaysia, lah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chuan Chun is asking, how about the Credit Suisse bank problem?
Yeah, I think the bank, some of all these few banks are working in a very similar way. Actually, if you are exposed to very big portion of investment in bond, then definitely you will definitely encounter this issue. So due to the interest rate high, then the bond price drop dramatically. Then they incur the big loss. So at the same time, they're also facing some withdrawal from the depositor, and as consequences, they need to chip sale or sell out their asset or current asset to fund the deposit, fund the withdrawal. So the problem is, if you can learn from all these banks, a lot of the bond investment, according to the rules and regulation, not necessary to be reported clearly or directly inside the report account. Because why? The bond price are actually subject to volatility every day. So if you put it into the report, then it require a messy or huge calculation of management. So due to that reason, it's put on a separate account put aside. So it's not necessary report. You need to compile it, but not necessary to report it directly. So a lot of bank compile, but they already know some problem under the table, but it's not surface up. So until it surface up, then you will give some very surprising and big shock to the market, and causing the bank run or some consequences or some problem later on. Okay, so basically this is some of the banking issue facing by all these bank right now, and as compared to Malaysia, we are tightened, very well controlled by Bank Negara, everything. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so the
even
Credit Suisse,
Credit Suisse, this is well known and very old banks also having some similar problem.
yeah. So I mean, banks. So you have to be wary of banks that has very high investments, because people thought that bonds are basically the least risk, right? When it comes to investing. But of course, bonds are subjected to interest rates, right? And the sudden spike like this caught a lot of people unready, lah, right? Including big banks. I mean, Credit Suisse is quite large, right? And basically, UBS actually have to start to come and provide the helping hand, right, to provide the liquidity, and that's why they took a stake in Credit Suisse. So this is bank. So this crisis is not as bad as the 2008 crisis, where because of the subprime mortgage crisis, because actually people cannot really pay back the banks, right? But this is more like a liquidity issue lah for banks lah. So it's a little bit different from the previous crisis that we see 2008. But that being said, I think this will also catch the attention of the U.S. Central Bank, and because the U.S. government, what they're going to do next with the interest rate hike, right? Because if they keep on increasing interest rate hike like nobody's business, then it will create more fear lah, on the banking system, because this is already happening in a few banks in the US. All right, so let me see if there's any question. Lawrence have another question. With this crisis, will foreign fund channel their funds to Bursa or this Asian region? What's your take? Sad to say that there are still net sellers in Bursa.
It's yes or no, because some of this one they have some mandate, or it's not like you can switch over the night and from a bond to the equities market. Okay, so of course we hope, actually all of us know, we hope to get more inflow of this fund to our market. So yeah, but of course, the problem before that is the interest rate. So we still need to monitor the interest rate, uh, whether it's keep on increase drastically or extremely later on. So after this, now the world is actually monitor, watch closely how Federal react after this, whether in the coming meeting, are they going to increase it, still intend to increase the interest rate in a higher uh, rate or not. So it will give, definitely will give some impact to the other market in the world, for sure. So yeah, but at this point in time, we can't directly relate that the foreign fund will direct channel into the equities market of Bursa directly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean you can't just look at the net buyers and sellers in Bursa Malaysia statistics because they buy and sell basically, right? But of course, one of the concern is that if our interest rate is lower and if it's significant lower, let's say than the other markets like the US, we'll definitely see some funds flowing out, right? Because basically, why do I need to put my money here when the interest rate is this much, where I can invest my money into another country where my interest rate is higher, right? So definitely, of course, Bank Negara will not just simply go and increase interest rates aggressively like what happened in the US, because the US, the main reason why, like I said, they want to increase interest rates is because they want to fight inflation rate, right? And they have been succeeding in doing so, because inflation rate has come down. But the question is, if US continues to increase rates, Malaysia will have no choice to also increase the interest rates, because we don't want to see the outflow of money to other markets, right? But Malaysia is being more conservative. I think Bank Negara, we actually quite got good um, uh, leaders in Bank Negara as well, right? They try to increase interest rate and see what happens. They try a bit more and see what happens. But US, you get a very steep spike, because you get a steep spike in inflation, but we don't see that high inflation in Malaysia, right? Is there an FOMC meeting today, or is the Federal Reserve raise interest rate by 0.25 basis points? That's what Yuan Tong is saying.
But it's a question mark. So normally we will get to know, yeah, very soon. If it's today, I can't remember the date. Yes, it's around within these few days. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, tonight we have no Lawrence. So they definitely cannot go and increase interest rate too high, right? Then it will create more fear in the market. People will start to have a bank run on the other banks as well. Okay, so you guys have any questions? Time is almost up. If you have any questions at all, you can just type it down. But just let me share with you, if you would like to know more about us and would like to, get more information and knowledge from us, you can actually we actually have other events as well, and therefore we want to invite you to our next event, right? But whatever that we see here, right? I mean, we all see a lot of fear in the market. All the information that we get from news when it comes to finances and economy, they are quite all negative, right? So it is a fearful market right now. Everybody is being very defensive. In being defensive, if you put the money in the bank, also you're scared right now, right? So what do we do with the money? So if you want to really take advice, we take advice from, of course, the world's greatest investor, right, Warren Buffett. Who actually shared with us his secret, right? But it's not a secret anymore, right? Because his mentality to become rich, to become successful in investing, is to do the opposite of what most people do, right? And in this case, to be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. So therefore, when others are fearful, which the situation is right now, it is time for us to really look for good opportunities, right? And therefore, the question is how, right? How do you find opportunities? Because even if we want to start investing right now, we do not know what to invest, right? And therefore, we need to find a way, a systematic way to identify really good opportunities. And if you're investing in the stock market, you need to find really good companies to invest so that when the market returns, then when the market goes bullish again, then you are right on good companies to invest lah. So we will be having actually another session on the 8th of April, and this is actually a physical session, right? Where we'll be looking at now because of the fearful, because we do adopt the principles of Warren Buffett when it comes to investing. When the market is fearful and you don't get this fearful feeling, you don't get this bearish market every time, right? Every year. It is like almost every decade you get this opportunity. Like if you have invested in 2008, for example, right, you'll probably do quite well right now, lah, right? Or you probably invested in 1997, that was like 20 years before. You could have made a lot of money. And we are facing this similar fear where prices has come down, and this creates another opportunity of a decade, right? And therefore, it is really a really good time to actually look for opportunities, especially investing in the stock market. So we're going to have this session. It's on a Saturday morning at 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. It's going to be a physical event, not online. So I guess if you're not around in KL, you have to make an effort to come down here. But if you're in KL, I do I want to invite you guys to actually come on the 8th of April, which is Saturday morning, from 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. And then we'll basically share with you how we systematically find companies that can be invested at low risk possible, and so that you can grow your wealth when the market starts to be bullish. We do not want to start investing only when the market starts to be bullish. That's when Warren Buffett said that we have to be fearful, right? So this will be a good opportunity. So if you do not know how, then I would strongly suggest that you come to our session on the 8th of April. All right, you can scan. We will also put a link on the website. You have to register. So this is by registration only. You can just type on that link and then register, and then we will see you on that Saturday. All right. Okay, maybe we can go and look at one or two more questions before we start. Okay, Lawrence asking ET when can start the fund, right? So for those who do not know us, we have also gotten the approval in principle or conditional approval from Bursa Malaysia to do fund management, right? We are already licensed in Labuan, but in a very short period of time, we should get our fund management license, but operational fund management license, right? But of course, we cannot say anything right now until we get the operational license, but we keep you guys informed, right? Haiso is asking, given the current rate is 4.5% with a likelihood of 0.25% maximum increase for US tonight, and ours is 2.5%, certainly fund inflows is unlikely going to happen. Yeah, so that's basically fund inflows, and again, fund inflow into the stock market or fund inflows here for investment, other investments is another thing, right? But the question is, do Malaysia stock market or Malaysian stocks provide really good valuations at very good prices at this point of time, right? For investors to come in. It's just that we all have just gone out of our political circus that we see over the past 3 years, right? So now the government really the government needs to play a very important role to actually start attracting investors into Malaysia, because for foreign investors, one of the main concern is always political stability. Okay, PK is asking, the Singapore bank impacted by Silicon Bank or whatever saga that we see in the US?
Yeah, actually, if you can notice that the MAS, MAS is Monetary Authority of Singapore, not Malaysia Airlines. MAS on 13th of March already announced that Singapore banking system has insignificant, I think a small portion, but insignificant exposure to the failed US banks and the bond. Yeah, they already declared that, so we can ignore that, or it's very minimum exposure.
All right, thanks. PKUI, model portfolio. Yeah, so we have to wait until we get our operational license, and we have to basically also talk with SC and before we can actually put the model portfolio back up. So we'll keep you informed. I know it's been quite some time that we have delayed it, but the delay is basically because of our application for the fund management in SC lah. Right? So we'll keep you informed. Right? Yan Tong say our Malaysia political stability is still not okay, meh? I mean, yeah, I mean, of course, Anwar Ibrahim will try to do his best, right? To make Malaysia great again. He has to be like the Donald Trump of US, right? But of course, there's also resistance. I mean, you heard our ex-PM Tun, who's going around and creating all kinds of trouble for the Anwar Ibrahim's administration. So hopefully Malaysia can get their act together. Then only we are able to go further, right? So that one, we have to just hope that they are able to pull this off. All right. Okay, so I guess there's no more questions. I do hope to see you guys. If you have, if you have friends who are interested to invest in the stock market and do not know what to do, please do also forward that link, that message to your friends, whether it's in your social media or whether it's in your WhatsApp group or whatsoever. Just invite your friends. Of course, it's a free event, so it's up to them to decide whether they want to, continue to learn from us or not later, right? But please do share this information to your friends, all right? So once again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. We hope to see you next week. We're also going to have another session of Kopitime, but we'll take a look at what is the hot topic, and then we will let you guys know. But next week, we're still going to run this Kopitime. But if not, we'll see you on the 8th of April, right? So once again, please do share this with your friends. Also, thank you, Swee Kiang, for joining us tonight. Depending on next week, what topic they're going to have, probably going to invite Swee Kiang again. If there's a topic that needs his assistance, right? Okay, with that, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Have a good evening. We'll see you again. Good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.